Think you know wrestling? Well, here's a list of some of the most worthless championships in professional wrestling history. Most wrestling fans, except those who perhaps followed the northeastern wrestling scene in the US during the late 1970s, may have forgotten completely about the WWF North American Championship. In most recent years, the title has been recognized as a precursor to the WWE Intercontinental title, though the two men to hold the little-known championship do not appear on any official record for the IC crown. A young Ted DiBiase was the first man to hold the title, later dropping it to Pat Patterson, who would incidentally be awarded the first Intercontinental title. In an interview, DiBiase claimed that Vince McMahon Sr. was unaware that Bill Watts recognized his top spot as the North American champion, so the plans were abruptly changed. But it was not a simple rebranding, but rather an abrupt scrapping of the championship altogether. Sadly, this is not the only time that Ted DiBiase would be associated with one of wrestling's most questionable titles. Under Paul Heyman, Extreme Championship Wrestling pushed the envelope, and despite not having the deep pockets of the financiers behind either the WWE or WCW, ECW became the number 3 wrestling company in the United States in the 1990s. Edgy storylines, the opportunity for wrestlers to reinvent themselves, and a forum for dark horses to prove their marquee appeal to rise to a contract were all part of what made ECW great. However, the re-engineered ECW under the WWE banner product lost a step. It wasn't a reflection of the talent, but from a fan's perspective, the anti-establishment ECW now being presented as a corporate brand simply didn't fit. Even though they had an increased budget and production values, it wasn't enough to sway the diehards to the regional product they remembered from a Philadelphia bingo hall long ago. The ECW World title, therefore, bestowed on a fast-track WWE recruit like Bobby Lashley, bore little connection to the initial bloodline of the Paul Heyman franchise. When the idea of a television championship first appeared, the concept was very clear. The TV champion would defend his credentials in televised matches against all comers. In Los Angeles, they didn't have a belt for the championship, but rather they used the billing to help elevate a mid-card wrestler to credibility to run against the headliners. There, the Beat the Champ concept was more like a game show. A wrestler who won the championship would defend it for up to 7 weeks on TV. If he was successful, at the end of the 7 weeks, he would simply vacate and 2 other wrestlers would have the honor to compete. Meanwhile, the undefeated television champion was now in good standing to rise to the main events, with some momentum behind him. In more recent years, though, TV titles started to be recognized at house shows and on other formats where the relevance of that billing gets a little more confusing. Could a TV champion lose his title on a non-televised arena show? If not, then why promote the wrestler as a champion in that venue at all? No list of wrestling's most nonsensical imaginings is complete without an acknowledgement of the $1 Million Belt, introduced by the WWF in 1988. Now, if we're to believe wrestling lore, Ted DiBiase was in line to win the WWF World title in the championship tournament that took place at WrestleMania 4. In the months preceding the tournament, Honky Tonk Man was to lose the Intercontinental title to Randy Savage, giving him a second reign. However, when Honky Tonk refused to do the honors, the course of the history was changed and Savage was given the nod for a world title, edging DiBiase out of the title picture altogether. The $1 Million title was then invented, contrived as DiBiase's effort to save face by creating a belt that was more valuable than the World Championship. A title without a history or a future, it became the central fixture of an extended feud between DiBiase and former valet Virgil. Astoundingly, however, the belt would make 2 comebacks. First, in 1996, when Steve Austin carried the belt upon his introduction as the ringmaster in the WWF. And then later, a second generation of DiBiases would carry this meaningless belt, as Ted DiBiase Jr. would be saddled with this title. There may have been some fans during the WWF's Attitude Era that waxed nostalgic for the Winged Eagle version of the WWF World title, which was introduced at the height of the company's national takeover of the sport in 1988. However, the belt's reintroduction as the Hardcore title, looking a little too similar to some of the low-cost belts that are featured weekly on the independent scenes at armories and community centers across the country, was irrelevant. Add this to the fact that the WWE never really did anything to legitimize the division, instead lampooning the hardcore style of wrestling with their presentation of the title, and it was quickly on a road to nowhere. Near the end, the title would change hands up to 3 times a night on house shows, making the official title history for the championship utterly nonsensical. The 24/7 rule, allowing the belt to change hands during backstage vignettes rather than contested bouts between the ropes, signaled the death knell for this ill-conceived championship. And don't even get me started on the WCW Hardcore title. Just a bunch of crap. In Texas during the 1980s, the World Class Championship Wrestling 6-man tag titles may have made sense. You had the antagonist trio of the Fabulous Freebirds, Michael Hayes, Terry Gordy, and Buddy Roberts, at war with a trio of wrestling brothers, the sons of Fritz Von Erich, Kerry, Kevin, and Mike Von Erich. The stage was set for a showdown for which camp would rule over the Lone Star State. However, when WCW introduced the 6-man tag team titles on top of their World Tag titles and the United States Tag Team Championships, the idea of a 6-man championship quickly got lost in translation. It didn't take long before the title would be contested by trios of mismatched, thrown-together tag teams like Dustin Rhodes, now known as Goldust, Tom Zank, and Matt Bourne. What? In an interview reflecting on Ric Flair's decision to jump ship to the WWF in 1990 while still recognized as the NWA World Champion, Ole Anderson was quick to antagonize his interviewer with a question. Champion of what? In Anderson's view, by the time Flair decided to jump ship, professional wrestling's territory system was already dead, as was the NWA. In the years since, many champions have committed their body of work to re-establishing value to the title, as traveling champions such as Lou Thesz, Jack Briscoe, and Harley Race had done before them. That meant that they would bring the world title to every city and town where a local contender could be elevated. Adam Pearce could be arguably identified as the last great NWA World Champion, regularly appearing and defending his title in the United States, Canada, Puerto Rico, Mexico, and even Australia. However, since the Bruce Tharpe regime took the reins of the NWA, the world title has diminished into relative obscurity. The world title has since changed hands and been contested in front of underwhelming unpaid crowds to include Vegas trade shows. Chances are you may not even know who the current NWA World Champion is. It occurs with alarming frequency. The number of times that a diehard fan walks into an independent wrestling show with his replica championship belt that he purchased off the internet hanging over his shoulder, only to find out that the one in the crowd is nicer than the replica belt that the penny-pinching promoter is using to celebrate the championship credentials of his top stars. There is a rampant belief on the independent scene that obscuring the WW logos with paint or stickers is fooling the fans, but it isn't. Not surprisingly, the lack of investment in the prestige of the championships themselves does translate into the diminished value of that wrestler's title claim. Fans are rightfully dubious of an obscure wrestler's world title status, said in air quotes, for a belt which may only be defended in a single city. Add that to the number of title changes that seem to occur on an independent card on a weekly basis, and it further demonstrates that the belt has become little more than a prop in a locker room that has lost sight of what a belt is supposed to signify. What do you think the most worthless championships in wrestling history are? Leave a comment below and make sure to subscribe to this channel for more videos just like this. Thanks for watching.